Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me have some more RPG horror stories. Completely random question that has nothing to do with RPG horror stories. If you could take like a concept or like a setup, let's say for example, Monster Hunter, hunting monsters and setting up quests and everything. If you could put something like a massive feature from a video game into a D&D game, what would it be? Could it be something that you have seen before and done well, or something that never been tried before? Maybe like a Silent Hill-esque adventure with an actual moving fog or something like that. And while you answer that in the comments below, I'm gonna get some RPG horror stories for today. AITA for building a Control Mage. Hello everyone, recently the campaign ended and I have mixed feelings about it. Trying to be better, but at the same time, I don't feel like I'm entirely at fault, which is why I'm here asking if I'm the a-hole. Starting out, the system we're playing was Pathfinder 1st edition, specifically the Spheres of Power version, which lets players kit out their character with talents so martial types could do more than full attack or charge on rounds, and casters have new spells to work with, but makes them specialize over something like wizards or clerics who have a book of spells to pull from. To summarize, a level 5 character in Spheres usually has a lot more of the same features a level 10 to 12 character would have via feats in regular Pathfinder, and I'd go from there. When the campaign started, the DM asked for us to not build strong characters and focus on having fun, since it would be more exploration focused than combat. The whole party consisted of 3 melee DPS and 2 casters debuff supports, me being one of them. No one was playing tank or healer. 2 of us could do healing out of combat, and 1 of us was good at restoring it across the party. But no one could out-heal the damage it would normally take during fights. The DM ran combat like Pathfinder Society, where there would be usually 3 to 4 consecutive encounters with no long rest in between. Combat was always started with all party members within 5 feet of each other. Bosses got to go first, and multiple turns in the initiative. Dragon with 1 default breath recharge would get 2 rounds counted instead of 1. Likewise, if there were debuff for X rounds, a 1 turn counted as a round for them. Mobs outnumbered us roughly 2 to 1 with 80 to 100 HP each, and enemies were usually in tactical position against wherever we started while having AoE attacks ready. People who did well on the initiative managed to get out of the splash zone usually, but otherwise everyone took unavoidable damage out of the gate. By the end of the most dungeons, we were alive with less than a quarter HP and no heals left. Though campaign we only got to loot enemies twice, received around 20k gold by level 8 as well. Wasn't this a campaign in the beginning that was like exploration focused over combat? And yet you guys have all these debuffs and all these terrible things that you have to deal with when it comes to combat. Bosses go first, some bosses go multiple rounds, enemies go first, you always grouped up together for enemies to AoE directly. Why is the DM doing this? I thought it was supposed to be an exploration focused campaign. My character was an elf druid who focused more on nature magic using spells that would affect areas to debuff or immobilize enemies, while the animal companion or summons would try soaking some of the damage and DPS members did their part. Other than that, my damage was 5d6 fireball to chip all the mobs and an air geyser that would yeet enemies straight up and fall damage on failed save, 8d6. Unfortunately, the campaign devolved into an arms race for there. For example, I put out a spell like Pit that mobs would have to get out of or go around, and that most enemies had the ability to teleport, fly, climb, or burrow out of it. The most contentious spell was an animated tree that I could create anywhere within 200 foot, gave the ability to move and attack or debuff, which gave the party a tank. Best thing it did was the ability to taunt an enemy so hostile actions could only target it for a few rounds, while it could also opt to do no damage at all on hits and cause the enemy to be fatigued or exhausted until they spend a full round clearing the condition. Skipping to the last session, we were fighting 2 dragons that also had Spheres features. Dragon number 1 was a blaster caster, and dragon number 2 is a martial type who would lock you in place and perpetually knock you prone if you tried moving around it or missed an attack against it. Again, I thought it was supposed to be an exploration focused campaign. This is not supposed to be a combat focused campaign, yet DM has thrown everything in the kitchen sink to make the combat a living hell for you guys. Halfway through combat, DM locked me inside a hurt box that I couldn't leave, and others couldn't get through on a corner of the map with a blaster dragon. Trying to survive, I managed to barely stay out of melee reach, grounded the dragon that had been flying until that point, held it in place, and put it in a situation where it had to pass concentration checks to try throwing more fireballs at me. In response, it somehow kept rolling ones on the breath recharge time behind the DM screen and was hitting me twice with breath attacks every round after that. Seeing that happen, dragon number 2 flew into the hurt box, ignoring the tree that had taunted it until that point, and the rest of the party to double tap my already unconscious character so they actually died. Then the round after that, both the dragons died since they were constantly provoking attacks of opportunity from the rest of the party to get me up to that point. One of the players in the party told me that I made the fight less fun and interesting for them because of what I was doing. He also told me that I made things harder for the DM and him since they had to bounce around my character. That player is the DM's boyfriend, so there could be some bias, but I still value their opinion enough to write a thread here and ask. So, AITA? If you were the problem of the campaign, I feel like the DM should have just told you, hey, could you maybe make a different build that's not a control build? Like I said, I want to be exploration focused and not combat focused. But I feel like they didn't, because no, they didn't in the story. At least maybe they told you behind the scenes that you didn't tell us, but I feel like they didn't. And they just were like, okay, combat time, make it extremely difficult. So instead of people playing an exploration campaign, I'm not making overpowered characters or busted characters or like fun characters. Everybody had to make try to make optimized characters. You just made what the campaign required. Campaign already had a ton of insane combat and difficulty, so you build a character around the campaign. You build a character that literally matched the campaign, unless the story is completely different. And DM said, hey, this could be a very exploration campaign, and you ignored it and said, screw that, DM. I'm making an overpowered control character that controls everybody, and you're gonna have a horrible time with it. At the same time, that will not excuse grouping you guys within 5 feet of each other, perfect fireball distance or AoE distance and stuff, and all the stuff they did to make bosses go twice or have multiple attacks in a single round and stuff and multiple turns in a single round. I think you made the character that fit the campaign. Your DM just didn't want to talk to you about it because they're trying to kill off your character. They're busy trying to kill off your character instead of telling you, hey, can you remake a character to something a little bit less controlly, more exploration, more RP focused? I don't know. Clearly, this is not a exploration focused campaign. This is a grinder. This was a combat grinder. You made a character to try to adjust to the encounter. But I don't know. What do you guys think watching the video? What do you think? Is the player the a-hole? Because I don't think they are. I think they did the best they possibly could in this grinder of a campaign. Alright, anyway, let's move on to the next story for the day. How someone managed to alienate the whole gaming club on campus. Time, 1998. Location, Major State University, and the gaming club on that campus. I was an undergrad and had become involved in the gaming club on campus. It was a decent-sized club for a couple of dozen people of a wide variety of gaming backgrounds and preferred games. This is a story of how one guy managed to alienate everyone, get basically kicked out of the club unanimously, and become something of a local legend of the worst gamer anyone had ever met. It wasn't just one thing, it was a long litany of things building up over a couple of years, by that point, going in roughly chronological order. He had an abysmal hygiene. He had a huge, scraggly, unkempt beard that had a lot of random detritus and remains of this last few dozen meals that looked more like crazy person than anything else. And his lack of bathing, clean or properly fitting clothes, and generally any kind of apparent self-care meant he looked bad, smelled bad, was generally physically unpleasant to be around. Ugh, I can't actually know. I've been with some really stinky people over in college, and let me tell you, it is not fun. They smell awful, but you're too polite to even say anything. So when you try to find a way to like move to a different seat or something, you can be like, oh, thank God, finally I don't have to smell them. But then somebody else has to suffer that whole ordeal. It's just, let's continue. He had terrible table manners. We typically informally hang out on campus in the student center in the middle of the day, around lunchtime. His usual lunch would be to go to the cafeteria upstairs, get 2 baked potatoes, go to the toppings bar, load them down with an unholy amount of butter, sour cream, cheese, green onions, and bacon bits, as well as salt, pepper, and stir it up on his plate into a giant mound of goo that he'd sit with us and messily eat, getting his beard, shirt, and face quite dirty in the process. And eat rather loudly too, making all kinds of noises. When he was done, he'd take his tray with him, but he'd leave a small mountain of dirty napkins on the table, and the table itself was smeared and stained from all he'd spilled on it. God, that is vile. I mean, dude, I will scarf down a mean baked potato with like sour cream and bacon bits and butter and onion and stuff. I'll scarf down a baked potato, like a loaded baked potato, but at least have some manners. Clean up after yourself, you disgusting, nasty freak. Seriously, like, it's not even difficult. Just after you're done eating, don't make a mess while eating. Don't eat like you're from a pigsty, and then take care of your own trash. No matter how many napkins you used or whatever, go throw them out. It's not that difficult. This guy just has no manners whatsoever. He mostly cared only about his homebrew D&D, AD&D 2E, which was his edition of the time, World. He ran a website for it, which was sort of a big deal in '98, and in the third era, he even published it as an OGL product. I think it flopped. I never saw it really mentioned or discussed anywhere, and Googling it for now doesn't exactly turn up a lot about it. He tried hard to steer all conversations back to his homebrew world, only will bring that up in conversation. Really wanted his homebrew game world to be the focus of discussion. He hated that we didn't want to fall over his latest announcements about what he was writing for his world. So we got somebody who's a messy slob and self-centered about his own great ideas and hobbies. What a winner we're reading about here, huh? Ravenloft was the only D&D thing beside his homebrew setting that he had any interest in talking about. Often talk about how it was the only D&D setting mature enough for adults to play. And by adults, he means college-age kids. And a few times he had played in games with him, it was Ravenloft games that always ended in TPKs, usually by Strahd just showing up and killing everyone. And he had lorded over the players about how he had won, and how if they play smarter and better next time, maybe they'll win. He firmly saw D&D as a competition between the DM and the players, where the DM tries to kill the players, and the players try to survive. An example of this is from the prior post made about one of his games. I might cover the story later on, I'm not gonna cover it in this video, but oh man, they're just stacking up one thing after the other, make the guy insufferable. We still got more to go through, let's see how bad it gets. He fancied himself a virtuoso musician. He was not. He would carry a little plastic recorder flute around and try to play songs he'd written as in-universe music for his game world. He loved to describe himself as a real-life bard. Would also try to spontaneously sing songs he'd written as an in-universe music for his game world. As in, we're just sitting around hanging out on campus and he'd randomly start performing ear-piercingly awful music badly. Any attempt to discourage this was treated as a mortal insult. Anybody that described themselves as a real-life bard or playing recorder, listen, I have a plastic recorder that I bought for a meme, but even then, I tried playing it and it hurts my ears. It is literally the most annoying instrument they've ever created. God, I hate the recorder. It is awful. It is terrible. I hate it so much. Anybody that actually unironically plays a recorder, like no shame to you or anything, but please keep it away from me. Our gaming club needed a nominal president. Oh no, please don't tell me you got him to apply. For purposes of registering as a club on campus, and he begged to be the president. So we elected him. Oh, then after he was elected, he said that he would be unable to attend any meetings for the rest of the school year because he was a performing arts major and his rehearsals for his required performance practicium were at the same time as our meetings. That he found out that his only role was as sound designer. Where do they put the speakers? Because the director thought he was so terrible he refused to give him any onstage role and told him he didn't need to keep coming to rehearsals because I already figured out where to put the speakers, but he kept going to rehearsals, skipping club meetings, but he wrote a constant stream of letters and emails to the campus newspaper going, as president of a registered student organization, I think, and basically wanted to use his nominal president position as a soapbox to lecture the campus on anything he thought about. And then never published his letters. We found out about this when a reporter from a campus paper came by to find out he was just up with a gaming club on campus, supposedly being so outspoken and political, only to find out it was just one really disliked guy with an on-paper only presidency given to placate him. Don't give this kind of people power in any capacity, they'll just lord it over everybody else. We already know as a DM, he has a DM versus player mentality where he lords his victories over players. If you were better than me, you could have won and outsmarted me, but I'm so smart and I'm a president of this club. On paper. Oh, can you believe it? There's still more to this guy. He's so unlikable. How much more can we stomach? I'm reaching my limit. The last straw was when we were trying to organize a small local game convention. The convention had gone poorly in previous years because of some people who weren't around anymore who ran it poorly, so we were rebranding it under a new name and a new venue, hoping to distance ourselves from the old con. We found that he was going around to various message boards explaining that the convention was the same as the old convention, put on by the same club, not to bother to go to it because it would be awful. This was the last straw, and we looked at university rules around clubs to see what we could do. We couldn't officially expel him, but we could remove him as president. We carefully read through those rules and held an official illegal emergency club meeting where literally every dues-paying current member of the club other than him attended, We voted unanimously to remove him from office and elected a new nominal leader. At least a silver lining to it, he's no longer president, but to completely go through and on message boards say, oh, don't go to the event, it's probably the same thing, it's gonna be same, lame and boring. Why is he doing it? Why is he such a... He's already a terrible person. Of course he would do it, of course. I mean, I honestly at this point I feel like the story could potentially be fake because there's no way somebody could be this insufferable, but for whatever reason, I think it's still believable for some reason. Let's get to the last paragraph and see if you can stomach it. When we announced the results of this emergency meeting and snap election on our email list, his response was an angry, threatening tirade claiming that meeting was illegal, the election was illegal, he had filed paper with the university to be reinstated as president. He called us base cowards for the highest order, vaguely threatened litigation over the issue, and promised that a scathing article denouncing us would be in a campus newspaper because he insisted he had a very good relation with the staff of the paper. He didn't come around anymore, and I saw very, very little of him after that. I ran into him once in passing at Gen Con in 2005 in a very awkward encounter, and that's it. And then on a positive note, but seriously, insufferable. I have no comments. This sounds the most insufferable human being to ever stomach ever in your entire life. I'm sorry that part of your college experience went to dealing with this individual. I got nothing. I just feel bad now. I feel bad. I feel terrible. Thanks. You made me feel bad. Thank you for sharing the story, but I feel awful now. Let's just roll the outro. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales tomorrow. Bye-bye.